Oh, we're live! Oh, sorry, I didn't know if it would do it automatically or not. Um, I hope everyone can hear me okay. I guess put in the live chat if you can't hear me. But hi everybody. I can't believe that this is my first live. Very exciting. Did not know how all of that worked, gotta be honest. So I can now hear myself, so I'm very confused. But okay. Oh, that's why. um, I'll just give a couple people time to sort of join. I am doing this from my lounge, rather than my usual like place of filming. I can actually hear myself in my earphones, which is really annoying me. I put my earphones in to help like record like the audio rather than a mic. Oh, and it's like an echo, and that's so annoying. Ah, I don't know if I can stop it now. Okay, anyway, we'll just ignore it. I am so excited to open this. First of all, I can't wait any longer, seriously. So we'll just go ahead and do it. I can't believe that like this arrived about noon yesterday, and I have resisted for so long not to open it. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. So thank you all for being here with me as I attempt to poke this teeny tiny screwdriver through this sellotape. YouTube, you've got really strong sellotape. Oh, we're in. Oh wait, no, at the sides. Nope, bottom. Okay. Oh, oh, a piece of black foam. Okay. Oh, a letter. First of all, from Susan. I'll read that in a second. We want to get to the good stuff. Oh! Oh my gosh, it's so shiny. Oh, look at it. Oh, I'm so excited to hang this on my wall. Like seriously, it's incredible. Um, this is like etched out, which is awesome. So it's like the silver frontage, and then this is etched, and then the play in the middle is like raised from the etch again. And it says presented to Dr. Becky for passing 100,000 subscribers. Yay! That's so so cool. It's like a proper mirror. You can probably see like all the rest of my lounge now on the side, but I can see myself. Which is really awesome. Oh, thank you, like literally to each and every one of you out there who subscribed because this is incredible. Like I started my channel because I just wanted to chat space, and I had been doing that on 60 symbols and deep sky videos, but when I moved off from Nottingham, from working there and moving to Oxford to work there, I wasn't allowed to necessarily continue doing that with 60 symbols. And I was just like, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep chatting with people about space. And I love being that sort of go between the research that is actually happening in universities right now and you guys, the friendly neighborhood astrophysicist, so that you can ask whatever question pops in your brain. And so I hope that I have been that for you, and that's why I've ended up with this thing. So I know it's not really about the accolades and awards, and that's not why I do it, but this is really cool. Okay, all right, got to put this back in the packet so that I don't damage it, wafting it around, so that I can answer some of your questions, like I promised I would do. And there's another little thing in here. It says I can get like personalized creator awards for the rest of my team. I guess we should get editing Becky one. She does a lot. She doesn't like it. Susan basically says, done something astonishing and great milestone, and your audience obviously cares about you. No, thanks, guys. This is a nice little thing that says my award was inspected and packaged with great care by Rick. Thanks, Rick. You're the best. I don't know who you are, Rick, but I appreciate it during lockdown and everything. Didn't really feel like an essential package, but gave me a lot of joy yesterday when that arrived, and now, oh, yay. Okay. Anyway, oh wow, there's loads of stuff coming in. Awesome. Hopefully I'll scroll back through. But I asked on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube stories and everything before if you had any questions that you prepped in advance. So I saw a couple that I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's talk about this." So on the live chat on the video thing, I had a little sneak before about 8:30 when I was waiting for you to go live, and I saw a question from Christian Lawrence. So hi, Christian. It said, "I quite enjoy all your visits to the various telescope facilities." Me too. They're the best. Have you put in any requests for time, or perhaps you have already some scheduled? So, funny you should ask. So I have been the past month basically just preparing telescope proposals. It's kind of that time of the year for astronomers at the minute, is that you're thinking, what science questions do I still want to answer? And what data do I need to answer that question? And therefore, what telescope do I need to put a proposal in for? So I had a couple of research questions. So one of the things that I applied for was time on the Hubble Space Telescope, which is like the ultimate dream, I think, for an astrophysicist. Like the Hubble Space Telescope is iconic, right? It's just the best space telescope. Let's be honest. It's no competition. So I have applied for time to look at some special type of galaxies that have very massive black holes in the very center, so supermassive black holes. And then what I call egg white omelet galaxies. So most galaxies have like a big bulge in the middle and then the beautiful spiral shape around the outside, which is kind of like a fried egg with like a yolk. Whereas my galaxies don't have any of the yolk, so they're like an egg white omelet. That's the pun anyway. And the question is always, how does the black hole correlate with the size of the bulge, like the mass of the bulge, mass of stars in the bulge, and then the mass in the black hole? And they're really well correlated. You see it like sort of across all sorts of different types of galaxies you see across the universe. And so it's like, well, what happens in the egg white outflows from these black holes? So not the black hole itself, but the accretion disk around the black hole. So the stuff, the material that's spiraling inwards, where all the pressure builds up so that it can't all be eaten by the black hole at once, it sometimes gives off these winds. And we're trying to detect that with images from the Hubble Space Telescope. And if you can detect the winds that are being outflowed, and you know how much the black hole is growing every year from the spectra of the galaxy, then you can work out how much like stuff is being thrown inwards towards it, and then how that's all sort of ties together with how the bulge grows in the middle and all the black hole. So I've got my fingers crossed for that, because getting Hubble time is so difficult. It's so oversubscribed, obviously, because it's the Hubble Space Telescope. But fingers crossed for me, guys. I should hear in the next month or so. So I've been doing that. I've also been putting a proposal together to observe the same thing, but instead of with images, you get a spectra at like every single point. So instead of sort of like splitting a galaxy up into sort of pixels to get an image, at every pixel you take a spectrum where you split the light into the rainbow, and then you can get lots of all the different features. And so we're going to do that for these galaxies hopefully as well with an instrument called MUSE on the VLT, which is in Chile. So obviously I would never be able to go to the Hubble Space Telescope if I got time, because it's in space. But MUSE in Chile, I haven't been to Chile yet. I haven't been to the Paranal Observatory. So I am so excited to see if that time comes through and I could maybe go as an observer rather than doing it like remote. It would be next March. I'm sort of applying for time for, because that's where you sort of get your list of targets and then you have to figure out when they're up in the Southern Hemisphere. And basically, that's what I've been doing for the past month, is putting together those proposals. The one for MUSE hasn't gone in yet. It's due in a week or so, or 2 weeks, I think. So that's sort of been my life for a while, as well as all this lockdown stuff. It's a nice distraction, I guess. So there you go. Then I also saw underneath Christian's question, Omega Minati, I don't know if that's real name, but hi, hi Omega, said, in caps locks, what? No, I'm not actually going to yell it. What was the topic of your PhD thesis? I feel like I've talked about this before, but people keep asking me about it. So maybe I should actually do a proper video. But it was mainly about quenching, which I made a video about a couple of weeks back, Quenching 101, like it was called. And it was all about the different processes that could cause quenching, which is what we call when galaxies stop forming stars. So they're not just like happily churning out stars anymore. They're red and dead, we call them. And my thesis was all about sort of the statistics of how that happens across the whole population of galaxies. We had this huge sample of over 250,000 galaxies, which doesn't sound big in terms of the fact that there's like billions and trillions of galaxies in the universe, but in terms of what we can take in terms of sample sizes with telescopes, it was pretty big. We're getting bigger with sample sizes. Hopefully, with the new Large Synoptic Survey telescope, we should get up to like a billion galaxies sample size. But whether we can like classify all the shapes of those is an issue. But that's future Becky's problem. So yeah, that's what my thesis was about. I'll make a proper, like, more in-depth video about that properly. There was also a big black hole chapter as well, because it was all about whether these winds from black holes can cause quenching. And that's how I got into sort of like black holes, because I was like, actually, the black holes is the really cool bit, and I want to do more of those. So, all right. So, speaking of black holes, I have all your questions up on my laptop here because my phone is doing the live streaming thing. So, anyway, Mr. Charles 2020 on Twitter. Hello, Charles. He's asked, my understanding of gravitational waves is that you can detect mergers or collisions of neutron stars, black holes, or neutron stars and neutron stars. And he said, how do physicists know from the detection of the gravitational waves which one of those collisions has occurred, whether it was a neutron star collision, or a neutron star black hole collision, or a black hole collision? And it's a really, really good question. So I really like this question. I wanted to answer it because I don't think I've ever covered that on my channel. So anyway, yeah. So the way that people do it is obviously you detect these gravitational waves with these huge, big detectors like LIGO or Virgo, which are those big L shapes. Where you're detecting these little sort of squishing and squashing of literal space, and it's tiny, tiny amounts. It's like fraction of a diameter of an atom or something. And so what they then look for when they've detected this like signature of space squashing and stretching is they see if it matches up with one of the models we have of what this should look like. So gravitational waves are a prediction of Einstein's general theory of relativity, i.e. the best theory of gravity we have, right? So there's lots and lots of equations to describe what happens to space as, say, to do is essentially in those equations. Oh, did I drop for a while there? This echo is annoying, but apparently quite useful. I'll carry on. So when you have all these equations, what you can do is this is like live bloopers for you guys. You must be looking at. Usually we chop all this out and put this at the end. I didn't even think about this. Anyway, black holes, focus. So when you have all these equations from general relativity, you can put in obviously the parameters for the mass of whatever you've got, orbiting each other. And so what you can then do is essentially say, okay, change the mass of one thing and change the mass of the other thing. So then you can end up with this sort of grid of like, oh, here's the mass of the first thing and here's the mass of the second thing. And then you'd populate that big grid with like what the signature of those two things merging together would look like in gravitational waves and what you would detect. And so when you detect something, you can then sort of say, okay, which one does it match up with the best, which is sort of a simplified way of putting it. You'd use very sophisticated computer algorithms to determine like what is the best model. And so that's how you determine, okay, what we've just seen is probably most likely a 30 times the mass of the sun black hole merging with the 4 mass of the sun neutron star. And that's how they do it. Pretty cool. At least I think it's cool. Anyway. And then there was a couple of things I saw on Instagram, and one that caught my eye massively. I have never been asked this question before. So that space guy underscore, thank you for this question because it was awesome. He asked, if you could build a spacecraft for research, where would you send it and why? And I was like, oh, cool question. I've never thought about that. Maybe people would think my obvious answer would be a black hole, but that would take so long to get there. That would just be, I'd just never see it arrive. I was thinking about the mission I'm most excited for at the minute, I think, is NASA's Dragonfly mission, which is their mission to Titan, one of Saturn's moons, which is like got a really dense atmosphere with loads of like almost like fog almost, I think is the right sort of word to describe it. And it's so thick they can do this sort of like hovercraft drone spacecraft that they're designing, and so it's called Dragonfly. And so it's essentially just going to hop around the surface of Titan and do a load of, spectroscopy to figure out like, what the atmosphere is made of and what it's going to find, and what is the soil made on Titan, if there even is some sort of like rocky surface, which we think there is. And I feel like, if someone gave me a lot of cash, I'd be like, let's do this. Obviously, NASA are already doing it. They've beaten me to it. But I guess it would probably be a mission to one of the moons of the solar system somewhere, because, I get distracted by galaxies and black holes and all the big things in the universe, but the solar system is so cool. And sometimes I forget that, that's the thing that got me into space as a kid. I had a big book on the sort of facts about the solar system. I think Io was probably always my favorite moon. It just looked so cool. It was sort of like really small, and yet at the same time, it was like so volcanic, and it was all colorful in all of the pictures. And plus, it was a moon of Saturn, and y'all know that my favorite part. Sorry, I got really thrown then by the fact that I said y'all. I think I've been watching too many US Instagram stories. But you all know that my favorite planet is Saturn. Oh, this is so weird. I usually talk to myself in a room, but like knowing that it's live is just playing with my brain a little bit. Uh, I also noticed a while back in the chat, the live chat, that Phil Higginson asked, "Did you ever meet Sir Patrick Moore?" No, I didn't, which I was gutted about. But in your question, you also said, "I see you work with Chris Lintott." I do work with Chris Lintott. So for I guess people who are not familiar, the Sky at Night, the BBC Sky at Night's been running for decades, and Sir Patrick Moore hosted it for years until he died a couple of years back. And Chris Lintott was my PhD supervisor, and he hosts it now. And on one of my very first observing trips with him, I think it was actually the second, we went to Hawaii, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just nipping outside to look at the sky while we're doing like a half an hour exposure time on this galaxy. And I'm gonna see what I can see." And he was like, "Oh, do you want some binoculars?" I brought my binoculars, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great." And he handed them to me, and I was like, "Put it around my neck." I was like, "Thanks." And he was like, "Cool." He's like, "Patrick bought me those," and I was like, "You can't just drop that bomb. You can't just drop that bomb on me when I'm just casually wearing them around my neck. Like that's not okay." So Patrick Moore was, yeah, always a big inspiration for any kid, like watching him pot around his garden with his telescope. I actually saw a question on that earlier. I don't know if it was in the live chat or Instagram. Someone asked me if I had a telescope in my garden. And I don't at the minute. We moved into this house about 6, 7 months ago or something. And the eventual dream is to like build this little shed with a retractable roof and put our telescope in it. And like get motors and hook it up to Raspberry Pi that we code ourselves so that we can like open up the roof from inside, and point it at whatever we want to see that night. But that's obviously a very long term dream, so we'll see where we get. All right, I'm gonna look at the live chat now and see what you guys have been asking. Hi, Pete. um, One of my friends is on the chat right now. Okay. Someone's asked Pink Mouse. Hi, Pink Mouse. Cool name. Did you know about 3C279 before the rest of us? No, I did not. I knew about it when it hit BBC News. It's not actually gone on the archive yet. That result. I was looking for it when it's actually published. At least I didn't think it has. If someone's found it on archive, send me the link because I couldn't find it. So this is the news that came out today that the Event Horizon team, the people who were responsible for that amazing picture of M87's black hole, what was it, last year now? When was it? April? Was it April last year or was it April the year before? Pretty sure it was April last year, but years have all smushed into one at the minute. I have no concept of time at the minute. So the Event Horizon Telescope, the amazing picture of MH7, they are reanalyzing that image to find, what they have taken in the whole region of sky that they actually observed, because obviously that was in the very center that they were trying to focus on. And right on the outskirts of the image, they calibrated, they pointed the telescope on a source called 3C279, which is another active black hole, one of these black holes that's spewing out these winds and jets from the sort of surrounding region from the black hole that's not crossed the event horizon, so it's not past that point of no return. So it doesn't have to travel faster than the speed of light. Thought I would just, say that again. And so they've been sort of finding a little more detail in these jets from 3C279, and there's this amazing image that they released. I'm going to read up more about it, and I'm going to cover it in this month's Night Sky News, which I think is next week's video. Yes. It's fun. I always feel like sort of what's coming up on my channel should be this big secret, but it really shouldn't. Like, I might as well tell you now that, like, tomorrow's video that comes out usual time, 8 o'clock Wednesday, is the second part of the Higgs video from CERN, which I'm so excited about. I've been editing it, and I really enjoy the video. I don't enjoy editing, but I've enjoyed the video. I think it's really good. And it's all about sort of how they discovered the Higgs boson, sort of from the 1960s onwards, when the theory was proposed, to when it was actually discovered in 2012, which I don't think is a spoiler, because I think most of you know the Higgs boson has been discovered, but if not, spoiler alert. Yeah, it's a really nice video, and I hope you all like it. I was also editing today the big bloopers video from all of CERN as well, collating all those together. So that'll come out one Saturday, I think. And I realized that all of the footage I had at CERN with particle physicists, where I'd like interviewed them, like I had like half an hour's worth of footage with each person, but I'd only use like 2-3 minutes max from each conversation. And I was like, it's such a waste. We had such really cool chats, but like sometimes what they said didn't fit in with like the story of the video I'd put together. So I've decided to just sort of like chop those together for each single chat, and then just like upload them like on random Saturdays coming up, so that it's like in conversation with the particle physicist. It was really cool. I hope people like that. So what is my favorite piece of math from Alpaca? I always like geometry. Geometry's fun. People think I'm weird when I say that I like differentiation and integration, but it's fun. It's fun. Also, the other day, my partner Sam took the piss out of me because I called what was it? What did I say? I called it. Well, the 5-sided shape is a heptagon, but I called it the 7-sided shape is a heptagon, and I called it a septagon. Anyway, see, I can't even remember now. This is what lockdown's doing to my brain. Oh, Default 3568. Thanks for promoting the Red Rising audiobook series by Pierce Brown. I started listening to it after you mentioned it, and it's awesome. Yes, it is awesome. It's really good. It's really, really good. It's a fiction book about sort of like humanity has colonized the solar system. Really good read. Would definitely recommend it. I have just finished reading Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harris. I think that's his name. That was a great read as well. Would definitely recommend if anyone's looking for a non-fiction book. That was sort of all about the history of humans. So yeah. How far ahead of time do you record your videos? If I'm recording 5 days ahead of time, I'm doing well. It's really difficult to balance research and YouTube, so I'm sort of always playing catch up with myself. Andrew Cole, come watch Comet Atlas with us tonight at 10 p.m. Channel Astronomy Live. We will probably be doing another several-hour tracking exposure. That's so cool. 10 p.m. Eastern, though. I'll probably be asleep. But anybody else who's watching, that sounds like fun. You should get involved. Okay, I'm sort of like scrolling. Why are observatory roofs normally domes? Good question. I guess because the telescope pokes up a bit. It's, like in nature, it's the most reasonable shape it could be. What food are you growing in your garden? Nothing in the minute. I'm growing weeds and there are some roses, but you can't eat that. We haven't done anything to it right yet. I'm scrolling. How is the current event affecting your area of science? From Thomas. I like that you referred to it as the event. That's fun. I don't think it's necessarily massively affected astronomy that much, because a lot of stuff, well, astrophysics, I should say, rather than necessarily astronomy, a lot of research that we do, anywhere. It's all with data on our laptops, on our computers that we can do from home. So it's not that big of an issue. A lot of observatories obviously have been closed. Where they can, they've got a support on astronomer working solo at the observatory. They usually live up the mountain anyway. And so we can do remote observations. A lot of stuff is often done where it's queued as well. So it's not it's not affecting it as much as you would necessarily think, but obviously the people who work in the field are suffering. Like, I can tell my productivity levels are dropping. I went into this thinking I can get so much done, but you can't because your mind is everywhere in the minute. So, but anyway, yeah. Scrolling. Oh, I thought I was the only one who talked to myself while alone. Tim Smith. No, I do it all the time. Ba-da-da-da-da. Oh, I'm gonna scroll back to the bottom. Have I seen the moon tonight? Scott Ryder. No, I haven't seen the moon yet. It's clear here, so I should go out and check it out. But I guess I'll probably have missed the best part because the best part to see a supermoon is right sort of after sunrise when it's low on the horizon. I was massively just sort of firefighting on Twitter today with everyone being like, "Oh, it'll be a pink moon tonight, a pink supermoon," and they were all posting pictures of the moon like looking pink, and I was like, "A pink moon isn't a thing. The moon will never ever look pink. That is a doctored photo. It's called a pink moon because that's what Native Americans traditionally called it because it's something to do with flowers blooming. So, oh, pink moon, and they think the moon is going to be pink. Then it's really damaging for science if they then go outside and look up and go, oh, what is all these astronomers talking about saying the moon is going to be pink? So I think it's really important that that kind of misinformation doesn't get spread. I didn't think the supermoon would get hyped up by the media with everything going on, but apparently everyone was looking for a massive distraction, which I don't blame them. So, have you ever collaborated with Fermilab or only CERN so far? No, I've never been to Fermilab. I talk about the Tevatron a lot in my upcoming video. So, you know, it would be fun for a trip there if that can still go ahead with the event going on at the minute. That's a dark matter detection lab that's based up in Yorkshire in England. So I am really excited for that. Do, do, do. Scroll. If you could visit any planet to study, which one would it be, Donald Jeffrey? If you're a subscriber of my channel, I would expect you to know that. It would be Saturn. What kind of cheese is the moon made from? Soylent Heston. I really enjoy cheese, so I enjoy this question. I would hope that it would be made from brie and then I would eat it all. Oh, when can we expect to see 3D models of the stars in our vicinity as measured by Gaia showing their motion as well? I really like looking forward to seeing something like that with VR goggles. FL Scrabbler, you and me both. I am waiting on tenterhooks for the new data releases of Gaia all the time. So there has been, I think, 2 data releases from Gaia so far. The idea is that it will observe a billion stars in our Milky Way and get positions and motions of those stars as well, 3D motions. So like, X, Y, Z position, and then like velocity in X, velocity in Y, velocity in Z. And then we can get sort of like a moving map of the Milky Way. We're definitely 2 data releases in, but I don't know like how many data releases they're planning. Obviously, it's always ongoing, the observations. But I would say at least 5 years before we get to a point where we can have sort of like a map of, sort of movement of stars in our vicinity. But that would be really cool. I would love to sort of like VR goggle and just immerse myself in that. That would be amazing. Yeah. Okay. So, Instagram had another couple of questions that I quite liked. One I get asked a lot. The universe is expanding, but do we have any ideas as to what it's expanding into? The universe is everything. There is nothing that isn't the universe. Space and time exist in the time. So there was no before. So it's a similar kind of question. You can't ask what the universe is expanding into when everything, and the multiverse theory is kind of my favorite theory to explain that. The idea that our universe is expanding into a universe next to us that is contracting at that time, and so on and so on and so on until infinity. But like, if you struggle with the idea of infinity, then that also probably isn't very comforting of a theory. You can either have there is literally nothing because the universe is everything, or there's infinite universes all expanding and contracting into each other. I quite like the multiverse idea, but like, it's not proven or anything yet. So like, even speculating about this is quite difficult, right? So you have to, work it on what the math is telling you, and really the multiverse theory is the best thing we have from the math. So okay, and then another question. Oh, that previous question was from Alex Harris. So thank you for that. This next question is from Miguel Mota. Hi, Miguel. He asked, what was the biggest discovery made by an amateur astronomer? Which is really nice. I was thinking about doing a video about this, like discoveries we made by amateurs, because it is really cool, that idea that like you can get involved with science yourself. And it's one thing in astronomy that you can do yourself. That's the thing. Like, everyone has the sky. It's one of those things that is global. And if you're actually in sort of like a less wealthy economic area, whatever that means, like you're actually in a better position to look at the sky usually, because that's away from light pollution. Some discoveries by amateurs. So I mean, recently you have Steve, which I've talked about on this channel, the aurora that particle aurora hunters, found in Canada, which was a great story. Obviously, historically, you've had amateurs finding, supernova and comets and asteroids, that kind of thing. More recently, obviously, there's been Steve, but then also that have I dropped out again? Oh, buffering. Now we go, I'm back. Okay, so Hani's Volva was this amazing object that was found by citizen scientists in the Galaxy Zoo project, which is an online platform that gets people to classify galaxies. And it's what I used to do my PhD as well, to get the shapes, to look at it all statistically. And Hani was a Dutch school teacher, Hani van Arkel, and she found this image that had been classified by like 10 people before her. And she was sort of been asked to classify the shape of the galaxy, but she flagged on the forum this weird fuzzy blue smudge that was underneath the galaxy. And she was like, hey, what's that? And astronomers had never seen anything like it before. And there was an amazing story about how they ended up figuring that out, which I'll hopefully tell on my channel one day. And it ended up being something called radiation echo. So it was sort of an echo. I've dropped out. A quasar ionization echo. So it was an echo of a black hole that had been active, setting off these jets and growing. And quasar, it means active black hole. And so it was really, really exciting. It was sort of like this sort of fossil of a black hole, which is a part of what's called the Zooniverse, which is this whole online project that gets people to classify. So there's been a huge uptake with people doing this in lockdown as well, which is amazing. Like, classifications have gone up so much. And what they ask people to do is, simple classifications of scientific data that are in data sets are so huge, the scientists couldn't do them by themselves. There's a great story about this guy in the northeast of England who discovered an exoplanet in Kepler data on one of these projects, and the media like descended on his house and were like, oh my gosh, like, you've discovered an exoplanet as an amateur, like, how do you feel, like, do you think it's really cool, like, why did you get involved with the citizen science stuff? And he was just like, well, there's only like so much gardening you can do once you're retired. Um, and then they asked him like, oh, well, now have you caught the bug? Like, are you gonna keep classifying to try and find another exoplanet? And he was like, no, probably not. I'll probably find something else to do. And I just think it's classic, like, that someone would think that, like, after helping out. But there are some people who are like super users who just classify like thousands and thousands of these images, and I just tap my hands because it's just incredible. Like, seriously, I've done a lot, but not on the astronomy ones because that's like work for me, I guess. So I do a lot on like the zoology ones with like penguins and like the Serengeti National Park. I now know the difference between like a Grant's gazelle and a Thompson's gazelle from classifying. this is probably a useless piece of information that I will never use, but I enjoy having it, so it's fine. Okay, I am scrolling a little bit, but, I think I'm gonna call it a day soon because it's quite late here. Um, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you again for joining me tonight, for asking some really cool questions as well. I will scroll through all of the live chat afterwards and pick out questions that I will have missed during the live because it's quite difficult to sort of do this at the same time. And if I like any of them, I'm going to add them to my giant list of topics that I have for my YouTube videos that I need to make this video, because you guys ask the best questions that, as someone who's immersed in it all the time, you don't really get perspective to think, what is it that people have never heard of or don't understand that you think about every day. Um, so it's so awesome that I can sort of chat to you guys like this. I guess I can get video edited from you, which is a little bit cheeky, but it really does help, I'm really really appreciative of it because it gets me things like this cool plaque, and it means that I can talk to 806 of you at once, which is seriously, seriously awesome. So thanks, guys. Hope all of you and your families are all staying safe during the event. I haven't said yet that my channel, I will continue to make videos to hopefully distract us all, and we'll get through this together. Bye, guys.